Brandon was like, but what if it's real? And I'm like, it's not. Like, look at this email. Well, okay, fine. I wrote back, didn't hear back for weeks. Okay, great. It was spam. Well, then somebody responded and wanted to set up a call. I'm still thinking it's spam. And I kind of like ignored it again. Then I finally went back to it. Hi, we'd be available on Tuesday. Well, we had the call, and sure enough, it was Nordstrom. So I was shocked.
Like, we started selling this product out of the trunk of our cars.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Inventory management is about balance.
Get the product out. That's number one.
I've always preached sustainable growth.
So we just started building community.
Look at the data.
Product development is everything.
Yeah, we say we're a brick, click, and pop.
But you have to love what you do.
She's a seasoned entrepreneur who, like the rest of us, have come across some wins along the way. We've had some, happen chance, lucky things that may have happened to our business that we came across. And at the same time, has also faced lots of obstacles along the way, like many of us also would have been very familiar with. So Sina is here to share her story about how she built Buff Experts, and we can't wait to hear from you. Sina, welcome.
Thank you so much, Scott, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to see you again. We're also joined by Ivana. Everybody would know Ivana, co-host here.
Hello, glad to be back.
Thanks, Ivana. So Sina, we got we had some good pre-chats over the last week or so, and I'm really excited to jump into some of these topics and share some of your incredible wisdom with everybody. Why don't you first give us a quick introduction into what Buff Experts is and maybe your other businesses too?
Sure, I'd love to. So Buff Experts is a body care company that my husband, Brandon, and I co-founded. We like to think of our brand as a juicy, bold, and plant-powered collection of body care. We only focus on skincare from the neck down. We feel that the face gets way too much attention, whereas the rest of our body doesn't. We also think that in terms of innovation, the body care category is really stagnant. There hasn't been a lot of innovation. And so we want to revolutionize what we call the drugstore beauty aisle. So normally we'd go to the drugstore for most of our body care goods. And I like to think that one day we are going to be on drugstores, and we've just elevated the entire category, but still made it really approachable, price friendly, just swapped out all of your bad ingredients, just make it a much better experience for customers.
So from the neck down skincare, I'm familiar with the product line.
Yeah.
Can you give us a couple examples? Is it like foot creams or?
Yeah, good question. So we have three pillars for our brand, for our products rather. So we focus on exfoliation, cleansing, and moisturizing. And we really want to stay true to products that do those three. Right now, we've launched with what I call sort of our capsule collection. So we've got a body lotion, body oil, a hand cream. And then in terms of exfoliation, we've got our shower gloves, we've got our dry brush, and then we also have our 2 deodorants. So we've got a really beautiful all natural deodorant, and then we have a brightening deodorant. So hyperpigmentation in the underarm area is really common. And so we've combined brightening ingredients in a deodorant. So you're getting the benefits of both. And I call that habit stacking. So you already apply deodorant. Well, now you get to just enjoy the benefits of skin brightening if you have hyperpigmentation. And then we also have an intimate care collection that is near and dear to my heart. So that is an intimate cleanser, and that is an intimate moisturizer.
So you seem to have yeah, go ahead, Ivana. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really love your packaging and just like your social presence, because it's so bright and so beautiful and so, clean and juicy, as you say. Was it always that way, or did it start out a little like mellow, or did you always did you go in it saying, I want this to be bright and beautiful and colorful?
No, that's a great question, Ivana. I'm glad you brought it up. No, so the precursor to Buff Experts was One Lux Beauty. So Brandon and I actually started the brand and named it One Lux Beauty. And you'll recall there was a time when the trend toward packaging was very minimalistic, white, black, gold, just very simple packaging, simple copy, and we bought into that. But it became clear after about 2 years that I just wasn't behind it. I didn't feel an affinity toward our packaging, and therefore I didn't feel an affinity toward the brand. And the packaging then went on to inform our social media and the type of picture that we posted. It went on to inform the kind of influencers we were attracting, and it just didn't feel authentic. So last year we decided to just completely overhaul it, and I wanted something loud and bright, really fun, but still elegant. So I think that our buyers are probably in their, like kind of 25 to 35. So I didn't want something that was too, I don't want to say childish, but like I wanted to make sure that it was still a little bit elevated and simple, but fun. There's a moment of joy when you look at our products. So yeah, we did undergo the rebranding, and I'm really glad because now, just as you said, when I look at it, I love it. It's fun, it's bright, and now I can have a social media that is fun and bright. I can have a pitch deck that is fun and bright, and I didn't know at the time that your packaging really, really matters. Like it really does inform the rest of your marketing and even advertising strategies.
That's a pretty big achievement right there. For our first achievement of the conversation is when you don't love something, you can't get behind it and you don't have conviction in it. But if you actually start building things the way that you prefer and that you're in love with, it just gives you more motivation to celebrate and scream from a rooftop.
Absolutely. And I will say, and I don't know if we're going to go there in the hour, but the rebranding dovetailed, coincidentally enough, with the emergence again of the Black Lives Matter protests. And so I did want to bring elements of my culture and my heritage. I wanted to bring myself to the forefront, myself being an African Canadian woman. I've been really hesitant to do that with One Lux Beauty. And that showed. And I think that was part of that disconnect that I was feeling because I wasn't really part of the brand visually. Whereas I decided, you know what, I'm going to make the leap. I don't want to hide anymore. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that I did, because just as you said, Scott, now I am all about our brand. And when I have my lows, I just think, you know what, this is an extension of me. I'm going to make this work because I know this is awesome. So that buy-in, that tie-in is like, you have to have it. It's a non-negotiable, actually.
Okay, so. Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think I read that your the ingredients that like you use in your products, you draw from your African heritage in terms of, how you create your product. So with that, like, where do you make it, and do you source your ingredients from different places, or how do you do that?
So we work with a manufacturer in the US, and what the reason, the primary reason actually we went with this manufacturer is that they focus on organic ingredients. They focus on fair trade ingredients. When they do use synthetics, they use what I like to think of as like safe synthetics, but it's not even the first ingredient they're going to reach for first. So this is a manufacturer that already is inclined to use better for you ingredients that are sourced ethically. My dream one day would be to be able to actually go to Africa and maybe work with a farm or a cooperative and sourcing certain ingredients like honey or coffee bean oil, things like that. We're not there yet, but that would be a bucket list item. But right now, within our budget constraints, I'm really happy to know that we work with a manufacturer who gets us, I think, the best ingredients for our dollar possible.
And are you able to share how you went about finding that manufacturer? Do you have any tips for?
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't want to discourage anybody on the call, but it's a really difficult process. And the reason why is that the beauty industry is so secretive about sharing their suppliers, vendors, etc. It's really sad, actually. So I think that this is an aspect of running a beauty business that is so challenging that really doesn't have to be, but nonetheless it is. So if you are looking for a manufacturer, I would dedicate a few months to it. And I say that because not only do you have to find a manufacturer, and many of these manufacturers don't have great web presences. They're not investing in Facebook advertising so that you find them easily. So you are trolling through Google pages, like you're on page 5, 6, 10, 14. I've never looked beyond page 2 in Google, and all of a sudden I'm on page 14 and I'm finding legitimate hits. So just be prepared for that research process. And then, of course, once you've got a couple of manufacturers, you've got to contact them. You've got to wait for the sales rep to get back to you. You've got to wait to schedule a call. And these manufacturers also, I didn't know, they are not interested in working with players who aren't serious about investing in product development and manufacturing. So there's a bit of a, you've got to prove yourself that you're really serious, but you, of course, are vetting the manufacturer too. So there's a bit of a dance, a bit of a back and forth. Like, do I believe you? Do I trust you? Do I want to move forward with you? Trying to nail down pricing is impossible. So if you're like, I want to come out with a collection of skincare, and it's going to be a cleanser, an exfoliator, and a moisturizer, 1 ounce, 5 ounces, and 6 ounces respectively. It's really difficult to get pricing from the manufacturer. It's a really arduous, tedious process. The good thing is you only need one manufacturer.
But I assume they have like minimum order quantities that they.
Yes, amongst many things, yes. And then there will be the minimum order quantities, which is just the minimum orders, the minimum amount of products that you can order from them for them to even fulfill your order. So ideally, if you're starting out, you want to work with a manufacturer who will let you maybe start out with 200, 500. That's pretty rare. I think what's normal is 1,000, 2,000 to start. 5,000 is not outside the realm of possibility, but you can find manufacturers who will work with you for lower minimum quantities, at least to start, with the commitment that, maybe a year out, you will raise your minimums. Mm-hmm. But it's a relationship. It's a relationship like anything else.
We have this old joke. It's a marketing joke, and it's like a search engine optimization joke. And it's the best place to bury a dead body is on the second page of Google. Because no one will ever find it.
Yeah.
So what is it with these manufacturers? Do they not want to be discovered? Are they at capacity? Can they not take on new customers? Like, why are they so hidden?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't. And we of course wanted to work with a Canadian manufacturer, and we couldn't find one. To this day, I'm still like, if I can find a Canadian manufacturer, I'm willing to have a conversation, but I don't know where these Canadian manufacturers are. I was thinking one day I might go to Toronto, and I literally might like drive around the city and try to see what I can find, and then go and drive, and maybe somebody's got a sign outside their window, and NPD manufacturing or something.
I have heard of a software. It's called Jungle Scout, I believe, for finding manufacturers. And I think they have a free trial of like 2 weeks or whatever it is, but then it's paid after that. But basically, that'll let you find, like, if you want to find out like who Starbucks mugs are manufactured by, it'll let you find the manufacturer and with like their contact info and everything. So wow. I don't know how much it is, but if you even do the 14-day free trial and just like get very efficient with your research, then maybe you can get all the info you need. But yeah, I think a lot of it still is like quite old school in terms of like, going to page 14 or just like calling them and having to call back. And it's I believe you that it can be a little bit of a tough process.
It can be. If there is one resource I can recommend, and if you are in the beauty space, the best trade publication is called Beauty Independent. They are incredible. You can also sign up. You can pay a small membership a month, and it's a tremendous resource. And they've got a directory called Uplink. And in that directory, if you're looking for 3PL, if you're looking for manufacturing, if you're looking for packaging, if you're looking for marketing and advertising support, there are vendors who have signed up to be part of Uplink. So that is also, I think, a really great resource. Not available to me when I needed one, but is now available.
That's great. So you've done your song and dance with finding the manufacturer.
Oh, yes.
And you're past that part now.
We're past that. I hope.
Do you ship from like your home, or do you use a third-party logistics provider, or where do you store your inventory?
So our 3PL provider is named Brandon O'Neill, also known as my co-founder. So he does.
I was gonna say that sounds familiar, but I'll wait to hear the rest of this.
Yeah, Brandon O'Neill and Co. So we rent a locker. We've got a really large unit, and that's where we're storing our inventory. But we are very aware that we are kind of getting close to maybe needing to outsource to 3PL as well. Many the majority of our wholesale accounts are actually in the US, and working with Nordstrom and some other retailers that we're in talks with, they are placing really large orders. One of the things that they require is an American warehouse because they don't want to deal with duties and customs. And we totally get that. So it is on our radar in the very short term, in the very near future, to start looking at 3PL and or warehousing in the US so that we can ship.
Okay, so hold the phone for a sec. Did I just hear? I think I just heard Nordstrom's name.
Yeah.
So let's get to that. Let's get to that in a sec. That's
okay.
It's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. It's just a little nonchalant, casual thing there. But let's go back a bit here. I want to know, like, I know you have it started with One Lux, and then you evolved the brand Buff Experts, but you have another business too. And kind of like, what was the motivation for you? It seems like one of the things I was going to say to you earlier is it sounds like you know a lot about the ingredients and the products. Do you have like training in beauty products, or what is like, how did your first business get started and how did you end up at Buff Experts?
Great question. So right now I own Buff Wax Spot, which is a chain of wax bars here in Edmonton. So I founded and I currently own and manage the two locations that we have. So Buff Experts is a place where we provide full body waxing services for women and men. We specialize in fast, friendly, and professional full body waxing services. Also super clean. My background, which definitely has informed both businesses, is in the sciences. So I have a bachelor degree in genetics. I did a master's in biotechnology. Then I did my MBA. I've spent a couple of years in labs. And so I have a real love for detail, protocols, and cleaning. And surprisingly, those three things have been able to not only shape my businesses, but actually help them grow and be a point of differentiation. So for Buff Wax Spot, waxing is ubiquitous. It's not difficult to find a place to get waxed, but it is hard to find a great place to get waxed. And I really wanted to take what I call beauty's like unloved companion and just transform that into an experience that was worthy of being excited about and being talked about. So with Buff Wax Spot, we took what is, again, otherwise a ubiquitous but poorly executed service and basically revolutionized it. For me, bringing in the operations was really important because in the beauty, in the spa industry, you don't get a lot of operational excellence. It's easy enough to open up a spot, particularly if you're an esthetician, if you know how to conduct the services. Like the barriers to entry are low. You just need to have enough money to open up a storefront and hire a few staff, buy some inventory. But running it really well is a different story. And I was native to the industry, or new to the industry, but I think that offered me a really fresh perspective because I could see, wow, if this were just tweaked, you could do really well, or wow, that's a lot of inconsistency. Like, how can you even begin to figure out what went wrong when you don't have any baseline procedures? So I was able to bring that to Buff Wax Spot, basically elevate the wax experience. So standardizing everything as much as possible. We train the heck out of our staff. I like to think of Buff as the McDonald's of waxing. It doesn't matter who you get, when you're there, which location you're at, you're going to get the same hamburger. You're going to get the same wax, the same experience. And so that hyper attention to detail. Also, I started out waxing. So I got my waxing certification, started waxing, actually really loved it. So built up the client base by myself, but working on so many bodies, I was like, wow, like, what can I recommend to the client for this? And with waxing, like facial waxing is a large component of your waxing, but it's really like neck down. I think that you spend a lot of time and you really get to see a lot of skin conditions. And over time, it was frustrating for me to realize I just didn't have solutions. I would constantly be going to trade shows, like looking for brands that I could bring into the store. So I would have appropriate aftercare to recommend, and I just couldn't find anything. And that's when I started to think, well, maybe I could create some skincare. And it wasn't to spin it off as a profitable business. It really was just so I can have something for my clients because I know what I'm seeing and I know what they need. So maybe I can start creating this myself. I've always loved indie beauty, and I think I had the confidence to start trying because I loved reading, for example, the Beauty Independent Trade publication. I would go to their trade shows. So over time, I'd collected a lot more information than I thought I actually knew. And that really helped as well. So it was something I was really passionate about, had some good experience from my past in terms of being able to do research, analyze what I'm reading, figure out like what works well together, and then come out with some products.
Was there any regulations or like guidelines that you had to be aware of or, kind of pass before you could actually sell a product that people are putting on their skin?
Yes. And this is part of, doing your research and making sure that you're covering your bases. So Health Canada Cosmetics has a really great section actually. And then it's very clear on the website what their labeling requirements are, claim requirements. There are a list of banned ingredients, and I think it's called the hot list. So you can always refer to that ingredient list, and it's updated regularly if you're like, oh, I'm not sure if this will pass. My recommendation is to work with a consultant. So somewhere on that Health Canada website is a list of approved third-party consultants. So you can work with them to like, hey, I've got this body cream and here are the ingredients. It's going to be in a 8-ounce white bottle. Can you check this for me? Make sure my claims are correct. And they will do all that work, file the cosmetic notification form for you. So you have to file your product with Health Canada. And then they'll sort of soft approve it or come back to you and say, well, you can't make this claim or the percentage of this ingredient is too high. So there's a bit of liaising that you have to do between your Health Canada consultant and your manufacturer because, and I've done this, you've got a completed product, you send it to your Health Canada consultant, and they say, oh, the percentage of this ingredient is too high. Well, you've just signed off on the formulation, you've paid the PO to get this started in production, and Canada has just said, well, you can't sell this as is. So now you've got to go back to your manufacturer. So what I've learned is, and we're still figuring this out with our manufacturer, really trying to nail down the process. But what we do is I come up with a proposed product, and then I have my target ingredients, and I run it actually by my Health Canada consultant first. Just to ask, are there any red flags here? Are there any ingredient combinations that I should know about that won't work? For example, the Intimate Salve, which is a moisturizer for the vulva. I had a higher percentage of essential oils than the consultant recommended. And I said, really? But they're just essential oils. And she said, well, particularly for pregnant women, they cannot be great. So I would just lower the percentage. I would never have known that.
And I assume you have to pay for these health consultants?
You do. And they're not.
I was going to say the government isn't giving them for free.
Yeah, no, they're not cheap. But, if you want to do things right, you're going to pay.
And you've been there, Sina. You said you've been there. You've taken that product and you had to go back to the drawing board.
Oh, yes.
It's like the last thing you want to do is have, 10,000, 50,000 units ordered. And then it's like, actually, you can't sell this stuff. So then in that, when you look at the numbers that way, well, the health consultant's probably going to be worth paying for just to save yourself headache.
Exactly. And
yeah. I was just going to say, so now you've introduced this product line, you got it approved by Canada finally, or eventually.
Yes.
Then you started selling it in your spas, like salons.
That's right. So we rolled it out to Buff Wax Spot. So part of that rebrand to Buff Experts was also moving over to Shopify, which was so transformational. We were on Squarespace, on WooCommerce, and they were just not really great platforms. And Shopify has unlocked so many powerful features. The Socialite team, of course, was pivotal for me even doing that and building out the website. But it's really funny because we rolled it out in the stores in my Buff Wax Spot wax bars, and then built this beautiful website and started building out our social media. And then we're just like, okay, and where are the sales? And like nothing happens. And we're like, oh my God, nobody is buying our products. And then we started to realize, okay, maybe we need to be doing some advertising. So started working with the team, and then started to get some sales.
It's one of our favorite sayings is, if you build it, they likely will not come.
Yeah. And I find myself so surprised when that happens every single time, like, I don't know how many times this has to happen for me to be like, oh, wait.
Well, that's exciting. So, I mean, when you first were developing the product, did you picture it to be an online business? Were you thinking this is going to be like an e-commerce business, or were you just thinking like you were saying before, you came up with a solution to a problem that you and others and your customers might have been facing without having like products for below the neck, which relates to your body waxing and all these kinds of things? Like, was it just supposed to be a solution for your existing customer base, or did you see it as something that you could grow bigger online?
Initially, just as a solution for my customer base. And then we started to think, well, there are other wax bars and spas that would definitely be able to use this product if they offer any services that are focused on the body. But we just didn't know which platforms to be on. So wholesale platforms. So Faire is a really great one. So FAIRE.com. Bulletin is also another great one, but we didn't know about those sites at the time. So we were just cold calling spas across Canada. And sending our pitch deck.
I love that.
Yeah, it was inefficient, but we started to realize, okay, we can maybe build out this into something bigger. And actually, the e-commerce play happened last year with the rebrand with the first COVID closure. So in March, first COVID closures, my Buff Wax Spot was closed, so my brick and mortars are shut down. And all of a sudden, I am reading digital sales. So brands that have had a great digital presence, like sales are going through the roof because people aren't outside buying because they can't, so they're buying online. And all I could think was, I didn't really think about e-commerce, not in any intensive way. And then started thinking, well, what do we even need if we want to go on e-commerce? So there's brand refresh. And okay, we need a new platform. Okay, then we've got to think about email campaigns and flows, and then digital, like our Facebook advertising and things like that. So it was really COVID-19 that I think shone a light on the importance of being digital as much as possible.
Earlier on, I was going to say I should take a shot every time I say that I have goosebumps, but then I didn't end up saying it. And I've had goosebumps twice now from what the first was like really about getting behind your brand. Like don't conform to what other people are doing and just trying to fit in with an industry, like set your own standard. And then the second goosebumps incident right here was like, that's a resilient entrepreneur in the times of COVID. That's one of the things that Shopify is teaching internally to their 4,000 staff is about like merchant resilience. And like they're trying to be there for these resilient entrepreneurs who are pivoting, adapting, changing their business models on the fly. And they're like, everybody's really aware that that's what's happening with entrepreneurs like Sina out there.
Yes, and you have to. The pressure to change or the timeline in which you have to do it is more and compressed. So more pressure, shorter timelines. But I think that as an entrepreneur, that's sort of what you do best. You read the environment and you make a decision quickly with the information you have. So you do the best with what you have and you just move forward. And if it's not right, you can quickly sort of backtrack and fix that. But having that flexible mindset, I would say, really, really helps.
Did you ever, like during the pandemic or any other time? I know I could say as another business owner too. Yeah. So when these like really bizarre things are happening in the world, you don't know what's going to happen. You have some crazy thoughts, maybe a couple nights.
Yeah.
Did you ever like given up during the pandemic or ever?
Oh my God, yes. The first closure, I really felt like a failure. I really internalized. And like I say this and I'm like, even hearing myself, I'm like, but that's crazy. Like this was not within your control. But I still thought, maybe if I had taken care of this, maybe if I kept more cash in the business rather than reinvesting it because we were growing so much, maybe if I had, switched to a different platform, not WooCommerce, so not being on WooCommerce, like all these would have, should haves are just tormenting you. And you're like, I could have done better so that we aren't here. So that took me about a month to really sort through taking it personally. And once I was able to move through that, I think I felt a little bit better about not being in control. It's not 100%. It doesn't feel comfortable, but there is still so much uncertainty about where consumer spending is going. I have never found it more predictable. As I'm talking about my brick and mortars here for waxing, I have never found it more unpredictable. I cannot predict what is going to drive our customers to come in. Is it going to be an unusually warm spell this week? Is it going to be a long weekend where all of a sudden everybody decides to go to Banff? Is it going to be a sudden loosening of restrictions. Like, I don't know. And I think in the past that would have really kept me up at night. And I've just sort of said, you know what, I don't know. And I can move on from this. This is a short-term, temporary, uncontrolled situation. And the best thing I can do as an entrepreneur is stay loose and flexible and just roll with it. When it comes to starting another business, because I consider the rebrand almost as like starting fresh again.
Yeah.
So I say starting a new business. My husband and I had a really long talk about it because we had been ready to fold. We ran out of money. We ran out of money. We had been bootstrapping it and we ran out of money. And I said, you know, one thing we didn't do is really take the e-com part seriously. We didn't really invest in the right things, particularly after talking to you, Scott and Simon. We really started to see like, oh, we didn't know about this. And we went for what I call the low-hanging fruit, the influencers. We went for the, the Instagram promote ads, that sort of thing. And so we agreed that we would take one more kick at the can and but really give it our all. And if it didn't work, then we would fold and walk away and say we tried. But in this process, surprisingly, we have done so well with the rebrand, but I don't think that we're prepared. And so that actually has led to lots of moments of, what the hell am I doing? We can't win in this space. Like, yes, Nordstrom comes knocking and we were invited to be part of their pop-in, and that's wonderful, but we don't know how to fulfill this order. We don't know what EDM is. And when are they going to pay us? And oh my God, what if another retailer comes knocking and now we have to release 10% of our inventory at wholesale pricing? All of these really big issues that are blessings, but also bring their own set of problems. And you just start to feel really overwhelmed. Like, I can't do this. I don't know. And I'm sort of speaking the thoughts in my head. I don't know why I thought I could do this. You're dumb. Like, these are terrible things you're saying to yourself. And then to make myself feel better, I'll say, well, this is what you went through with Buff Wax Spot. When I opened Buff in 2017, February 2017, but I had been doing it actually a year before. So I rented a room and I was busy building up my client base. But I remember when I opened up, most people, when they heard the name, thought it was like a place for cars, like buffing cars, waxing cars. And this concept of a wax bar was kind of laughable. It was like a joke. A lot of people didn't take it seriously. And now we are almost a household name in Edmonton. And I'm not bragging, but I just keep thinking to myself, you did it. You bootstrapped it. You made it work. You had situations where the first month I had to pay rent. I'm like, you've been in these moments of sheer terror and you've made it through because you held on to your vision. So that's what gets me through Buff Experts and getting really overwhelmed by all of the players and the really big players. And we talked about this earlier, the smaller players, like the super cute little indie brand that you see pop up on social that looks so homegrown, but they're not. There's millions of dollars behind them. And you're just like, how can I possibly compete in this space? But I think having blinders on and keeping super focused about why did I create these products in the first place? I think about the client whose skin sort of inspired me to create this product. And I'm like, just keep your eyes focused on the goal. I want to revolutionize the drugstore aisle, and that's what I'm going to do.
Whew.
Scott, goosebumps number 3.
I'm on 4, 5, 6 by now, and it's too early for shots, but maybe coffee or something.
I was going to ask, have you ever considered seeking outside funding? Is that something that you would ever do, or are you more so wanting to kind of bootstrap it and fund it yourself for as long as you can?
We would be open to outside funding. Friday nights are Shark Tank nights, and we are just all about it. So yes, we are definitely open to outside funding.
Ivana was telling me a funny story about the Dyson. Did that come to your mind when Sina was just talking to me right now?
No, but you go for it.
Well, Ivana was just telling me this story a couple of days ago about Dyson, the vacuum cleaner founder.
Yeah.
And basically, when he was going to start Dyson, he was in his 40s. He was 42. And everyone was like, well, why would you do this? Hoover is the vacuum cleaner company. And people actually call the vacuum a Hoover now because it's kind of like Kleenex. The brand got called a tissue, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, why would you do that? And he's like, because I'm going to revolutionize the vacuum cleaner industry. Something like
Yeah.
that, Yvonne?
Yeah, no, you got it right. And that's
Yeah.
exactly it. Like people told him that he was crazy going up against Hoovers because how was he ever going to compete? But he improved it based off of, and I think he was like an inventor, kind of was his background, but he improved it based off, the issue he identified was the loss of suction. That was a big problem. So he set out to fix that, kind of similar to how you saw the skin issues. You're like, there's nothing out here that's helping people that I can use. So, yeah, I think if he had listened to people, he probably would have never actually made Dyson into what it is today.
Yeah, it's easy to get deterred.
Oh, I think she might be frozen on us.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully come back in here.
We can just keep telling the James Dyson story.
I feel like you had another story up your sleeves, but I love that Dyson one.
Oh, I have lots of stories. I was going to say when Sina had mentioned as well with like the what they named it, like the buff experts, and people thought it was like cars, or like why would people just come in and get a wax? That was the same sort of idea with like dry bar, to get like the the blow drying, just to blow dry your hair. I forget what the name is of the lady that started that, but people told her as well, they're like, who's going to stop and pay just to have their hair blow dried? Like that made no sense to anyone. But now like Brazilian blowouts are a thing. You go and you get a nice blowout and your hair looks good for like a week. So it's a thing. You just got to believe in your idea. So
Hi, Sina.
Sorry, I got booted off. So I just came right back into the video, but
Yeah, you're great. I think we're just still talking about how easy it is to get deterred from your path by looking at what everyone else is doing different. Like you just feel like you're not doing enough, or you should be doing more. You should be doing this. But like what you're doing is just focusing on your customer and the solution, kind of like Dyson did with the vacuums.
yeah.
See, when you came up with the idea for this kind of for your product line, did you initially, when you first had the idea, did you tell people about it, or did you like keep it to yourself and kind of percolate on it and build it in the background?
My style is to keep it to myself. I'm not interested in people's opinions. I'm just not. So
what was like did you say something about naivety? Like it's almost good sometimes to be.
yeah. Oh, as an entrepreneur. Yeah. I mean, the only people crazy enough to start businesses and revolutionize vacuums are those, I think, who have, I call it like naive optimism. So about 80% of what's going to face you, and the remaining 20% is like a question mark, and that's okay. And if you are okay with that, I think you're going to be a great entrepreneur. But if
I just know that too, as a fellow entrepreneur, when I was starting the agency 10 years ago, this is my 10th year doing this. And 10 years ago when I was doing it, I was like, I'm nothing. I have no clients. Like I have 1 or 2 clients. And like, I'm looking at these big agencies and I'm thinking like, I'll get like eaten alive by this industry and the competition and all that. But I soon learned that there was like a service offering that I was doing that was actually quite a bit different than what everyone else was doing. So I went with like deep into the digital. And like trying to solve those problems better than anyone else can is kind of what you have to do.
Exactly.
All right, should we talk about the Nordstrom thing now, because I feel like we've hinted at it come up a few times. So I'm excited. People are like, what's going on with Nordstrom? So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What happened there? Did they approach you? What's going on with that? Whatever you want to tell us about that.
Yes. So Nordstrom approached us. Maybe it was October, November. So it's a funny story. I don't know if other entrepreneurs on this call do this, but I had this sort of like fantasy about what it's like to be approached by a retailer, and what I thought would happen and what actually happened were not true. So we received an email from Nordstrom, and I totally ignored it because I thought it was spam. I was just like, as if Nordstrom would email me to ask like, more about our product. So I kind of ignored it. And then Brandon was like, but what if it's real? And I'm like, it's not. Like, look at this email. Okay, fine. I wrote back, didn't hear back for weeks. Okay, great. It was spam. Well, then somebody responded and wanted to set up a call. I'm still thinking it's spam. And I kind of like ignored it again. And then I finally went back to it. Hi, we'd be available on Tuesday. Well, we had the call, and sure enough, it was Nordstrom. So I was shocked. So Nordstrom does these pop-ins. They're pop-ups, but they call them pop-ins. And they hold a few of them throughout the year. They're highly curated. events where they sell, well, they have themes and then they carry products that support this theme. So this pop-in that we were selected for is called their self-love pop-in. And so the theme was self-love. And so they carried products that support self-love, let's say lingerie, sexual wellness, intimate care, candles, that sort of thing. So we were selected as part of this. And they like to pick indie beauty brands. So they're not going to pick, large established players. It's a way to introduce in a small scale, safe, low risk way, some new brands to their Nordstrom customers. So of course I said, well, how did you find us? And they said that I think it was maybe like a shop black or black owned page that had a sort of a directory of black owned brands. But then she also mentioned our social media was really beautiful, as was our website. So for those who are like, how do I get a hold of buyers? I hate to say it, but this was just pure dumb luck in terms of Nordstrom approaching us. However, and we just talked about this at Ivana and Scott, and I wrote it here, but opportunity is the intersection of luck and planning. So one thing you have in your control if you are looking to get into a large retailer is the planning piece. So is your website like on point, like super beautiful? Is your social on point? Is it really beautiful? Is your product deck on point? Is it beautiful? Because that's where Nordstrom went first. And then they're going to ask us, can we look at your pitch deck, your product deck? Yeah, no problem. Okay. So they're connecting the dots and they're like, yeah, they've really taken care of everything. We are interested in having a discussion. So serendipitous that Nordstrom contacted us, but I don't think they would have contacted us if we hadn't spent as much time on our website and social and pitch and all these other aspects of our like our brand touch points that
always have that pitch deck ready.
Exactly. That you are ready for opportunities.
You might need it in an elevator.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how's that going? Yeah. What's the Nordstrom? How's
the
that going?
pop-in? Right. It's actually going really well. So the pop-in is from January 15th to March 14th. Actually, they're typically only a month, but they extended it out to March. I think because of all the closures and stuff. So we got an extra like 2 months of exposure. So it's still running till March 14th. It's in 7 Nordstrom doors, so 5 in the US and 2 in Canada, the one in the Nordstrom Vancouver and Toronto. I'm really chuffed because Toronto's closed still. My family's in Toronto, so I really wanted them to go and look and take photos, but everything is closed. So we're hoping the restrictions lift March 8th so that they can go and take a look, and so I can actually see like what does it visually look like. But the really awesome thing is about 4 weeks into the pop-in, Nordstrom placed another order. So they had sold out of, So it was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. So we think it's going well, and fingers crossed, we hope that they pick us up as a brand and that we are sort of formally on the Nordstrom website. It's super exciting. We also have had a little bit of interest from Urban Outfitters, so that's really fun. And when I say interest, like the process is really long when you're working with retailers. Like the Nordstrom pop-in, because that was a pop-in, it was fast. They wanted to know, are you in? Do you have the product? We like what we see. Okay, great. Ship those out to us in the next 3 weeks. But it's only a 1 month commitment on their end. So I understand that the process went faster. Otherwise, when you're working with larger retailers, it's a much longer process. There's an interview. They want to talk to you. If they're interested, they're going to set up a second touch point with you. And then you're going to talk about pricing, your stock units. Is it compliant? Can you ship it? And then you get into the nitty gritty. So I think you have to expect a few months with that.
I think you would be such a good fit at Urban Outfitters. Like I can just see your packaging kind of fit in so nicely with just all the other stuff, because they do tend to sell like a lot of indie stuff and some like quirky things. But I think you would just be great in there as well.
Thank you. Send us Urban Outfitter vibes.
If anybody from Urban Outfitters is listening, definitely get
There, I am happy to also provide, if people are looking for access to retailers. So I really recommend Beauty Independent. Like I cannot speak highly enough about them because they provide so many resources to beauty entrepreneurs. So as I said, they have Uplink, which is or maybe I didn't say it on the call. Right? On Uplink. Yeah. So they've got the directory. They actually just launched a program called Addit, ADIT. So it's a buyer that works on your behalf to pitch your product to retail partners that they're working with. And it's a very low subscription rate. It's about $1,000 US. That's for the entire year, which is really good. They do an interview with you, and then they pitch you to different retailers. They've got Whole Foods, Ulta, they've got Coast Bar, they've got C.O. Bigelow, like really decent retailers in the US. So I'm happy to provide more information there. That's a new program that they just launched this year. But for those looking to enter the US market, I would totally recommend that.
That's a really good tip. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I was gonna something else pretty cool happened.
Yeah. Well, just before we go there, I just have one more question while we're on the Nordstrom topic. That they give you enough lead time to like make sure that the amount of product that they were ordering, you were able to deliver in case you like didn't have that that amount in inventory. Was that ever an issue?
It's one of the first things that they'll ask. So like the conversation isn't going to go anywhere if you if you don't have the inventory, or they will, okay, when are you getting it back in stock, or can we purchase some of your other items? So yeah, that was right off the hop. These are the products we're interested. These are how many units we'd like to order. Do you have it? Can you send it? Yes, great. And Nordstrom was wonderful to work with. They were so patient, so kind. I mean, to be honest, you know, just because I saw Nordstrom in the emails, otherwise I wouldn't know that it was Nordstrom. You didn't feel like you were working with, well, whatever you think working with a large retailer is like. So
we were in Yvonne and I were in Seattle like a year ago. It's almost like I think it's like our 1 year anniversary this week. It is. Right now.
Wow.
So we did a Shopify meetup. We did one in Vancouver. Then a couple of days later, we went to Seattle and did a meetup there. We met so many amazing entrepreneurs at these two events. And we met a guy who does jewelry. He's actually like later in his career. He's like close to retirement, and he's a jewelry maker. And he was working at Nordstrom many years ago, like 30 years ago or something. And he was making jewelry, and he was, I think he was like, got it. Like, was he Yvonne? I think he was working at Nordstrom in like a jewelry department, and someone was like, oh, you make pieces. And somehow this luck plus planning thing happened to him, where the Nordstrom's founder's wife was like, can you come and do like a jewelry showcase at my private party with like all these awesome buyers and stuff like that. Wow. So he goes to this party, and it was so good how he told the story, much better than I am, because he was just like, his mind was blown. Like he was like, what is happening? And then they got interest, and they were like, we need you to submit all of these things by this deadline. And he was with his sister, like trying to get to the Nordstrom in time, and it was like almost closed. It was like out of a movie. And he got in there, and they were like, yes, we want this. We're going to order a bunch of it from you. And I think he did like one order and then could not keep up. And he stopped the dream.
Wow, Scott, what a way to end that story.
But 30 years later, we met him, and he was back at it. He was building his jewelry business on Shopify.
Amazing. I really identify with that. With when you are not ready for that growth, what do you do? You're either going to push through, or you're just going to fold your cards and say, this isn't where I plan to be. It's too much too soon.
It's not a dream, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that comes with its own set of challenges too, right? Like you think that getting into like a Nordstrom or a Target or any of these big retailers is just a dream, but it's great that you got in, but then there's a whole other set of challenges of just making sure that you're able to get the inventory out. Maybe like, the purchase order, like maybe they don't pay you until like 6 months after you've already delivered or had to deliver the inventory. So then there's that gap of that you have to figure out, how are you going to fund that? Do you have enough money to ship out this inventory and then wait 6 months to actually get paid? So there is a whole other side to it that people have to be ready for.
Exactly.
That planning piece, Sina, is really resonating with me too. Because if you just have the focus on sales and marketing, and it's like, you get your website up, you start advertising. Whoa, that advertising engine is strong. And it's like traffic is showing up. We have to have something to sell people. We have to be able to fulfill it. We have to so it's continual momentum that doesn't really slow down.
Yes.
Right. So the logistics need to be dialed in.
Yes. And we are pretty shit at it, I'm going to admit. Like, it's becoming very clear how not good we're at. But it's just as you said, Scott, it's the Facebook advertising works really well, and all of a sudden you're cranking through inventory and you didn't really expect that, and now you've got to buy more, and oh my God, do we have the money for this?
It's common. It's common. there's this guy we know. He's called the Inventory Boss. Really, really exciting, sexy stuff. And he lives in Boise, Idaho, and he knows his inventory stuff. We should connect you with him if you ever just.
I love it. The Inventory Boss. I'm like, my ears should whoop.
Yeah, and he's honestly the nicest guy. He speaks a lot. He's actually like a pilot, and he speaks at all these conferences. He's kind of like much later in his career, closer to retirement. But he says every time he goes to a conference, like all these marketers will be up on stage talking about, sales and all this stuff, but everybody's picking his brain until 3 a.m. about inventory, because that's like a very big pain point for a lot of entrepreneurs.
It really is. I'm in packaging hell right now, so I'd like to speak to the Inventory Boss.
We can make that happen.
Yeah.
All right. I think in kind of like the last 5 minutes, one last thing I wanted to bring up, because you had mentioned you had worked with influencers before. And I did happen to see you guys featured on Kylie's Skin, which I mean, that's quite the accomplishment. Do you have any idea how you ended up on there? Did they reach out to you, or how did they find you?
I don't know. And I'm so sorry for saying that to everybody who's on this call. I'm so sorry, but I don't know. Actually, another funny story. It was about 7:00 and I'm just clickety-clacketing away on my computer and my phone pings. And I look at it and I see Kylie's Skin, shared a post. I'm like, Kylie's Skin, what's that? And I go and I look and I'm like, what? I'm like, no, it's spam. Like I guess that's just my default mode. Like, it's spam. But my friend messages me. She's like, hey, you were just featured on Kylie's Skin. I'm like, Kylie Jenner? She's like, yeah. And then I go and look properly. I'm like, what? So I don't know. I think our branding is just so on point. I think that's all I can say. However, and I don't want to maybe not point out the obvious, of course, being a Black-owned brand, there has been a lot of attention shone on brands like me. So I know that had something to do with it. And I think that's sort of a movement that we're starting to see more attention, particularly in the beauty space, on Black-owned brands, and making sure that we are, shining a light on them, elevating them where possible. So maybe that had something to do with it as well. But I'm also Canadian. I'm like itty bitty, so I don't know.
Well, you know what, people, I think the last number I read was for Kylie Jenner to actually do like a sponsored post. She charges like $100,000 per post. So, I mean, I assume you were
$1 million,
$100,000.
100 or a million, but maybe 100.
$1 million per post. I mean, wow.
But it was $1 million. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Even my number's completely off, but I was impressed with 100,000. So clearly my bars are.
What a deal.
Yeah, that's a steal of a deal.
We got this for FREE. So,
but you do use influencers like for just like your regular marketing. Do you have any kind of strategy with that, or you just kind of, if there's somebody whose feed you like or whose values you align with, you just reach out to them?
Yes, we would like to develop a more robust influencer strategy, but because that didn't work well for us when we were One Lex Beauty, Brandon and I are a little bit hesitant. And so I know when it works, but we just want to be a lot more thoughtful about who we're working with, because at the end of the day, it's about developing relationships. And if I may, when I get really overwhelmed with buff experts and being digital and thinking, well, I'm competing with the whole wide world, because the whole wide world has access to the internet and can throw up a website. I just think about, what are you really good at? I'm really good at connecting with customers, and I can do that for free. I can reach out to every customer who's ever bought with us and ask them what they thought, ask them if there's anything they'd like to do differently. And so that's where, like, really this weekend, I just had an epiphany. I said, focus on the things that you can do. Don't worry about the things you can't right now. Don't worry about the $1 million you don't have in funding. And I'm also reassured by what I was able to do with Buff Wax Spot, because I didn't have all that money. So right now I am super focused on cart abandonment, and I'm super focused on our repeat orders. So reaching out to customers, and that makes me feel really good, because one customer at a time is how you build your business. You don't look at the mountain in front of you. You just look at the customer in front of you.
Do you have anybody like are you do you have anybody else on your team besides you and your husband that's helping you do any of this stuff? Or are you kind of a two-man and woman show right now, doing like fulfilling orders and doing all of that stuff?
It's just us.
Yeah.
It's just us. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, so it's good because we really know our business, but we definitely have identified when we can hire the positions that we'd like to fill.
I think, so a couple big takeaways as we start wrapping up here. The two things that were really resonating with your story is like, be honest and lean into your brand. Like that seems to have had a big impact for you, like getting picked up with Nordstrom and Kylie and the social media presence and all these things. The second thing is know your customer. This is something that we preach all the time, where it's like, don't make content about you. Don't make content that presumes you know what your customer cares about. Go and talk to them. So I'm so happy that you brought that up at the end there. I think that's invaluable to get on conversations. Everything you're doing is for your customer, who's the real hero of the story.
Exactly.
Any advice, or you tell me, if any last little advice for someone in a similar situation where they are wanting to build a beauty brand, and they what are the top 1 or 2 priorities to consider?
You need cash. You need a lot of cash. So start applying for credit cards, start applying for line of credits. Like, you need as much cash as possible. That being said, you've got to be really strategic about where you spend your dollars. We made the mistake the first time around of not spending where we ought to have. I don't regret it because, brand 2.0, we know where we want to invest in the business. And this time around, I think when I look at where we are 8 months into our business versus 8 months into our other One Lux Beauty, it's exponential. And so we're really able to apply those learnings, but beauty consumes a ton of cash. The second thing is, just as Scott said, you really got to know your customer. What does your customer want? Can you actually envision the customer in your mind? Because then you'll be able to speak to them. You know exactly what to say to them, what their concerns are, their hopes are. And don't be afraid to talk to your customers. Like, send them an email. It's okay. You've never met them, I know, but you can send them an email. Hey, I just wanted to ask, how's it going? How's the product? One thing that, just by doing this in the last 2 weeks, I have been hearing back from menopausal women. So our intimate care line is being used by menopausal women. And I would never have thought that. Well, menopause brings a whole slate of symptoms. And one of them is dryness and itchiness and irritation down there. Well, I've been using your product. I'm 65. I've recommended your cleanser to all of my friends. Wow, I would never have known that. So talk to your customers. Don't be afraid.
Whew, goosebumps. Sina, thank you so much. You're really obviously wise. You've been through some challenges. You've been resilient. You kind of always navigating to a better path. You're obviously really optimistic too. I think that probably goes a long way.
That naive optimism, you got to have it.
All right, Sina, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be back again for another episode in a month. Go check out our website and sign up to our newsletter, merchantmastery.io. We have a really awesome newsletter that goes out every Tuesday with the latest and greatest information, lots of training resources in there, and announcements about the podcast episodes. So thank you again, Sina, so much. We really appreciate the conversation today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Scott and Yvonne. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Thanks so much. See you, everybody.
Bye.